the Sound Seekers Audio Festival.
Adam and Star Poetry Collection.
No,
Star and Adam Poetry Collection. Welcome to Community Radio Refugee Awareness Week. This documentary is about refugee children and family in France.
We are Adam and Star. We are sisters from Afghanistan. We learned how to make radio documentary in Calais refugee camp. We have made a lot of radio shows, and now we are in Paris making this documentary.
We went to Porte-la-Chapelle area where all the refugees are situated. We have met some minors, families and volunteers. We have talked about the situation of Porte-la-Chapelle and the young children who lives there.
But there is not just refugees there. There is also French homeless people. The first person we met was a French lady who is volunteer to help refugees in Paris, especially children. She do this distribution every day and on Thursday and Friday. A picnic to feed the refugees who lives on the street. This is the interview with Agatha.
My name is Agathe Nadimi. I try to help refugees for a long time, and more especially the underage, the young boys and the young girls who have no family there, okay? And it's difficult because they are alone and that the situation in Paris is not good for them because they are refused, most of them, and after that they are alone in the street and they have no food, they have no money, they have no place to sleep, they have nothing. So I just try to give what I can give to them and help them for the paper also.
So what's going on in here?
What's going on? Each day we bring food for them because sometimes they have no place to eat or sometimes they have to wait a long time, okay? Because they are coming in the morning to have a place to sleep on the night at the Red Cross, and the people say, okay, you go at 5 o'clock to have a place to sleep, or you come back at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we will see. So they are alone in the street and they don't have food. So today I'm here to bring what I can bring to them, okay, some food or some clothes or some credit card for a telephone.
Can you say us how have you organized this distribution for food?
Oh, it's like that. I don't really organize. I just find some nice people who want to help, and they bring what they can bring. Okay, so today it was raining. It was a little bit different. Okay, so we were there with the food, and I'm come to the Red Cross, near the Red Cross this morning very early to say, okay, wait and come with me after at noon, and you will have lunch.
What's the situation in Paris in here?
The situation in Paris is very bad for refugees and also for young refugees, for underage refugees, non-accompanied refugees, because there are a lot of people and the government not do enough and there are not enough places for each one. So it's a very bad situation.
What are the problems that refugees, children and families have in Paris?
The problem is that it takes a long time to have asylum, okay? And during this period, they have no place to learn French, to have something, education. And so for the children, the situation when they are alone without family, okay, it's that nobody take care of them.
And how many person you feed in here?
Normally, we have each day approximately 100 or more than 100 young boys or young girls who come to eat underage.
What's your feeling about the refugees in Paris?
It's a shame how the government they protect them and they welcome them.
We met an English volunteer of Solidarité. Her name is Flo. They do a distribution of tea and coffee every day for refugees who live on the street. In Porte de la Chapelle, they give legal information for people. We volunteered for Solidarité for 1 day. We helped prepare the tea and coffee. We carried the hot, heavy flasks of tea and coffee onto the street.
Sorry, this is a bit slow. Yeah.
Coffee.
Bonjour, tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Two coffees, yeah? One coffee, one chai.
This is my interview with Flo.
My name's Flo. I'm 29 years old and I'm a volunteer for Solidarité.
What's happening in Solidarité here?
So we provide, we distribute every day. We do tea, coffee, information about services for refugees that are sleeping on the streets in Paris. We also bring out art equipment and some stools, and people do French classes. So we try and provide a bit of respite, sort of daily respite for people who are here waiting to access services.
Why you're in here? In Solidarité. Why you're in Solidarité?
Why? So I was in Calais last year, and after the big evacuations, I left. And then I'm half French, so my mum has a place in Paris, and I just came to Paris to see what the situation was, and decided to provide this.
How do you help the refugees?
We help them by as I said, providing sort of daily distraction to what's going on. Lots of our volunteers come and speak to people. We help people that are sleeping on the streets feel less invisible, feel like they matter. They can express themselves and draw like lovely paintings that we then stick up on the wall. We just sort of bring maybe a bit more of a human aspect to aid, which is sometimes can be quite intense, and when it comes to food and clothing, because they're quite valuable sort of items. So we just have a bit more of a relaxed approach.
How is the situation in La Chapelle?
It goes in waves in Paris. You have it builds up, as you'll see now. It's really built up. But then there'll be an evacuation. So I'd say in about a week or two there'll be an evacuation, and then it will just build up again. So in the summer the situation gets a lot worse because a lot more people are coming over, and it's pretty bad at the moment.
Why people stay in La Chapelle? Why they don't want to go anywhere?
So it's Porte de la Chapelle. It's because the people stay near the services that they want to access. So a lot of the people that are sleeping on the streets that you see here, they are simply waiting to get into the camp, which is the humanitarian centre, which was like the government's response to people coming over and the camps that had formed previously in Paris. So they just stay as close as they can be, so they're there in the morning, every morning, to try and get into the camp. The majority of the people that go through Italy will now be getting their fingerprints be taken, which will mean by Dublin law that they have tried to claim asylum in that country in a way. But yeah, it just means that basically if they come to France, they have to wait 6 months, where it ends up being more like 8 months before they can start their asylum process. And more people are getting sent back. It's really small. I went to really interesting training with a lawyer who like went and investigated all this stuff, and she was like, you know, if you look at the statistics of the people coming through from Italy and the actual number of people that they've actually sent back to Italy, it's really small, but it is something that they're using more and more, and there's a reason why, you know, that like the sheer number of people that are coming in, they have to be thinking of another way of like, they're just shuffling people around Europe, really. Like, it's really ridiculous, but yeah. And like, Italy has like 2 detention centres at the moment, and they've got plans to build 6 more. So you can tell what their solution, what they're like, where they're heading with it all. You know, like the EU are putting so much pressure on them to like be a lot more strict about everything. Yeah, exactly. And then like Bulgaria, some of the people that like the stories I've heard about Bulgaria are like unreal, and that's another problem. People don't understand. They get given documents, they don't understand them. They get given like an OQTF, which can be broken and can be sorted out by a lawyer. They just need to go to the right places, but they just don't know, and they just don't go to these appointments. And the minute that you don't go to an appointment, you've extended your, say, 6 months to another 18 months, and they don't understand that because they don't understand it. It's not in their language. They're not being told properly. So we try. Like, the information that we have is we've got like I don't know if we've probably got some around, but well, we should have. Is just about all the different like legal helps that they can go to, which is like super important. And like we have folders with like exactly what like the asylum process in France, but like in all the different languages, just so they can kind of understand like where they are in this really long, you know, they think they've arrived in France, but it's like no, there's another really long process you're about to go through. And yeah, and then also the volunteers that we have, making sure that they're trained and equipped to kind of give the information that they're giving out, because giving wrong information can be so bad. But at the same time, we need the volunteer, like, you know, how do you check that as well as like check everything else? So it is really tricky, but it's actually, we started off with a little sugar table and like 2 dispensers. So yeah, and we were just like standing like, are we doing the right thing? Yeah, I mean, like, it's anything like that, and it's like the same thing with the triage, the Dublin triage thing. They're all things that could be like very, very possible, and it's really sad, and they're completely out of everyone's hands. But it's a speculation, like it's not. But I have seen children, like 12-year-old kids with this document, and that has like been like someone looked at you and said that you were not a child. It like you do question it, so I completely understand where that's come from, and in some ways would agree, but it's not. There's no like, but they're being funded by the government. Same with MAs, so they're playing by their you know, they're not independent. You know, they're playing by their rules, so there has to be some sort of, I don't know, it's horrible to think about, but there are some groups that look after them and house them and take them to the appointments that they need to go to and stuff, and they're quite good. And same with families and minors kind of get like swept up quite quickly. Like, you don't see them on the streets for a very long like period of time, and they get looked after.
We met Danica. She's an independent volunteer. She helps refugees by different ways. She does some cooking and coding class with minors refugees. We have talked about the situation in the Red Cross with her. And we went to visit the Red Cross office, but they were in vacation for 3 weeks, so we couldn't talk with them. This is my interview with Danica. Hello, can you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Danica Jurisic. I'm a volunteer, an activist in Paris. I help refugees on the refugee camp and around it.
What are you doing for refugees in Paris exactly?
Well, there's a huge spectrum. I'm part of the several groups that are helping refugees. So let's say I participate in organized distributions of the nations. Very basic things such as clothes, food, sleeping bags, tents if necessary, the basic supplies for their daily lives. So that's one of the activities. And the other one is we are running small classes, courses that are related to coding, informatics, creativity, storytelling, and from very recent 3D printing. So we're trying to educate those younger ones and kind of put them back in schools, prepare them for their further education.
What is the situation at Porte de la Chapelle now like?
Well, Porte de la Chapelle is the place where you will find an official Paris camp for refugees. It's called also Camp Anne Hidalgo, Camp Paris Nord. But beside that official camp that's hosting around 400 people, you will find hundreds and hundreds of people who are waiting in line just to get accepted, who are waiting in line to start to have some protection, to have some possibility to be taken off the street and put in housing centers. The situation is quite bad. But it's summer, so we are not dealing with very low temperatures like we did this winter. It was below 7. We had almost 100 refugees in front of the camp this winter. So let's say that's a plus. Evacuation was the last evacuation was almost 2 months ago, so we are hoping for a new one by the end of August, beginning of September, where all entire population of the refugees waiting in front of the Porte de la Chapelle will be taken into, with the MAUs, with social service, with police, taken into a different housing center all over Ile-de-France, and their cases and their asylum application will be solved, but not while they're sleeping on the street. It will be solved where they actually have some protection, somewhere to sleep and something to eat. So Paris, it looks awful. It is awful. It is bad. Even we have a huge problem with the French administration. There are huge problems with Dublin, which is the most unfair thing that ever happened in the history of refugees. You can't do that to the people. I mean, only because someone passed through another country to get here and to apply asylum does not mean that you have a right to expel him into that country. So we're working with a team of lawyers. All of them are working for pro bono. They are volunteers. There's many also associations who are trying to beat the Dublin, who are trying to show the refugees the way and the possibilities to get them to court, to present their case, and to deny the deportation back to the original country, especially when it comes to those who are already been marked as very problematic, like Bulgaria, Hungary, and others. So,
why people come to Porte de la Chapelle?
Well, Porte de la Chapelle is the place where, besides the camp that we already mentioned, and besides the possibility of evacuation, there's a huge amount of groups and associations that are doing distributions. So people who are at Porte de la Chapelle, they can kind of count on meeting a volunteer, meeting a group, meeting someone who will give them either clothes, either sleeping bag, or food packages. That's why they're staying there. That's why they're... So beyond the camp, there's a lot of distribution.
What is the situation for minors in Paris?
When you talk to anyone from any official organization, they will tell you how minors are very well taken care of, how they're housed, put back to the school, how they are, supported by the government, and they will present you number of programs and projects for that. But reality is far much more different. When you come to Paris as a minor, first you will be put through so many questions and so many tests. Where are you from? Are you a refugee? Are you definitely a minor? They will question that. Even kids as old as 14 were not accepted in the center for the minors because they were not being admitted. They weren't recognized as one. They were told that they're adults. The second issue is that they will not believe you that you are actually without any family. So even if you are sleeping on the street, even if you are like covered in dirt and dust, and it's obvious that you are living outside, that there's no one who's taking care of you, you will be questioned and questioned. Where are your parents? Where is your mother? Where are your documents? Where is your brother? And if there's even a simple trace of suspicion that you have someone in Paris who, even if it's a complete stranger who just gave you the jacket or the shoes, you just might be refused from DEMI or from the institutions that are supposed to take care of you, because they will justify it by, oh, you have someone, you're not unaccompanied, you're not isolated, okay, you are a minor, but you have someone who's taking care of you. So there's a huge amount of problems for the minors. The third one is administration, and that is the most ridiculous one. Even when you have minors who are recognized as minors and who are recognized as refugees and who are housed, their education, their life, their coming back to school, their can simply be stopped and frozen in time by a little administration errors or issues such as, or they're not vaccinated, or they don't have insurance, medical insurance, or they don't have a metro ticket to go to school. So there's a lot of little errors that are always there in every life of a minor. It regards administration, and it actually has a huge impact on their lives.
Are they safe in Paris? Minors.
They have advantage in Paris because there's a huge support team, like volunteers, grassroots organizations, a lot of people. You met Agathe yesterday. There's a lot of people who are really much engaged, who are really, really trying to help. So that's a huge plus. That's a huge advantage for the minors. But are they really safe? Like, is there an organized governmental institution that is immediately taking them in and taking care of them? No, that does not exist.
What do you think would be better for them?
Better? Well, the better would be if a government actually did their job and, provide them with the safety and security that they need in a more efficient and instant way. It's like everything that they do for the refugees and for the minors, it's like a symbolic, like something like, like a very symbolic gesture. Like, yeah, we care, but, putting them through entire process, no. The other thing that I really hate is when they take a kid, make a token out of him, and present him and promote him around. Like, look, this is how we treat minors, and it's only one person, where there are masses behind him who are completely anonymous, not seen, not heard, not taken care of. And that's the problem. I've just read this morning about Belgrade. There's this kid in Belgrade. He's like 10, and he has a huge media attention. I think he's from Afghanistan as well. He got a huge media attention now. They call him Little Picasso, and he lives in Belgrade. And I've been there 3 months ago, and I've spoken to. There was almost over 1,000 people living in barracks, in abandoned railway stations. 700 of them were minors. 100 of them were kids aged 8 to 12. None of them had any right none of them was taken care of. They were sleeping outside. They weren't going to school. They haven't seen a doctor. If there was Médecins Sans Frontières, they would have nothing. They would have no medical care. And now, when you have masses of those kids who are completely abandoned, and you take one of them, and you brush him up, and you put him in front of the journalist and say, "Look, a little Picasso." Everybody's gonna take and pay attention to him, and nobody's gonna see the thousands of them who are left behind. That's incredibly cruel. That's awful.
Yeah.
But here I've seen so many kids, minors, who were promised that they will be taken to UK by volunteers, and who didn't apply for asylum for months in France, and who had huge amounts of problems with police and law, because they were expecting help from UK volunteers to take them over. That's also one of the issues.
Okay.
Yes, there's a lot of people. I myself, I think I would be better off in UK in the beginning because of the language, because I spoke English better than French. But once when you're here, and when you put an additional effort to integrate, to learn the language, when you see how things work here, I prefer to stay in France myself, and I think that many refugees have that impression as well.
There is many refugees in all over France, but there is two main destinations, Paris and Calais. In Calais, refugees' aim is to get to England, but in Paris they are waiting to claim asylum in France. The similar between these two destinations is that they do not really have any access. People are going to England because their family lives there, or sometimes they speak English because they worked for American and British Army as a translator. In Paris, refugees sleep on the street to get into the main center. In Calais, they sleep in forest and they try at night to get into the lorries or train to get to England.
I hope you enjoyed our documentary about refugee children and families in Paris.
Shukran, shukriya, tashakkur, manana. Thank you for listening. Until the next show.
The Sound Seekers Audio Festival is funded by the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland using the television licence fee, in partnership with the Irish Research Council. For further details, go to thesoundseekers.com.